Today we're gonna do some free jazz cooking. We got some really bitter vegetables, dandelion greens, broccoli rabe. What we're gonna do is cook them in a few different ways. We're gonna start with it really bitter, overpoweringly bitter, and then it's gonna gradually get less and less bitter and resolve to a nice kind of umami, savory, balanced finish. We're still gonna get a little bit of bitter, but it's gonna be balanced with the umami, with some acid from lemon, and probably some sweetness from sugar. We're gonna cook it with garlic and a little bit of ginger. Onions, we're gonna caramelize them a little bit. Tomatoes, also acid and a little bit of sweetness. A little bit of body too, and umami there. And then also spinach to mellow it out. So the final recipe will be mostly spinach, a little bit of very cooked dandelion and broccoli rabe. But there's gonna be 3 to 5 progressively less and less bitter bites. You can think of this similar to playing outside of jazz, or even that little 7th note or diminished in a standard classical piece that resolves to a 1. What we're doing is adding a little bit of tension when you cook. It's kind of probably an acquired taste. I'm probably not gonna like it at first, but have you ever had warheads? When you have like way too sour notes, the sweetness tastes so much better. So this is very similar. This is like warheads for grown-ups. I'm gonna start by cutting up the greens. We're gonna separate them into stuff that we're gonna parboil beforehand and stuff that we're not, to make it more bitter, because the boiling will reduce some of the bitterness. Same thing with the dandelion greens. Spinach I'm just gonna cut up and cut this full. We don't need to blanch the spinach. Cutting up a few radish slices. This is just gonna add a little bit of texture and color at the end. Okay, so I just peeled 4 cloves of garlic and a knob of ginger. I'm gonna mince the garlic. And also mince the ginger. Juice the lemon. Dice the tomato. Gonna parboil these. Take them out after a minute. Same thing with the broccoli. Parboil for a minute. Okay, first we're gonna cook the rabe and the dandelion greens straight up from raw with just the olive oil and some salt. Taste it. Very, very bitter. Okay, let's stop this first one. Okay, bite number 2, we're gonna add a little bit of garlic and ginger. Okay, that's bite number 2. Quick cook, garlic, ginger, salt, broccoli rabe, dandelion greens. Bite number 3, we're gonna cook these longer. We're also gonna add some onions. Add in the garlic and ginger. Bite 4, we're gonna add spinach as well. This one's gonna be all of our ingredients, but using still the raw greens instead of the blanched parboiled greens. Okay, we're adding some balsamic vinegar. This is gonna add a little bit of acidity and sweetness. A little bit of lemon juice. I'm gonna let the vinegar and the lemon reduce a little bit, boil off. Okay, that's done. Now for the last one, we're gonna use our blanched greens. the rest of the onions. Lemon juice and vinegar. The last thing I'm gonna do to our final balanced taste is add just a little bit of brown sugar. Okay, our final balanced taste is done. I just tasted it, it tastes great. So here you can see our final 6 tastes for this dandelion greens and broccoli rabe palette mixture, free jazz cooking, bitter to umami thing that we have going on here. Most bitter, least bitter. And actually what I'm gonna do, because this is more like how it's done in music, is I'm gonna start with something that's pretty close to good, but has something slightly off about it. So these used the raw greens instead of the blanched greens at the beginning. And didn't cook quite as long, didn't get all the water out, so it's kind of off. Also notice that I added some radishes for a little bit of texture, a little bit of color, and a little bit more bitterness actually, but a different kind of bitterness. So actually we're gonna do this first. And we're actually gonna get progressively more bitter until we reach the final balanced resolution. It's kind of like resolving to the tonic in music. So I'm actually gonna rate this kind of like this, because it looks good. Let's start. It's pretty good. It still has this bitterness, but the lemon, the balsamic really balance it out. The onions balance it out. It tastes good, but it tastes slightly off, but it's okay. So we do that. So now we're primed. So now we're doing this. We know what that tastes like. Much more grainy, much more herby, but actually still pretty good. We cooked it long enough. It's not bad, but definitely less flavor. Now we get to this one. Pretty similar, but no radishes, no spinach. Definitely harder going down. I feel it in my throat. Something's not quite right. We get to this one. No onions. Very pure, very raw, very bitter, but actually still good, but very bitter. So you get a lot of the pure dandelion green flavor, and you're like, ooh, that's dandelion green, and that's a broccoli rabe. Olive oil, ginger, garlic, little bit of a balance there. Then we get to this one. None of that, just straight up greens. And it's still good. I like broccoli rabe. It's very bitter, but I like being outside. This is awesome. I almost wish it was more bitter. I wish we had like a just straight up raw one. Maybe I'll do that. This ain't cooked at all. That's just greens, pure taste. And now finally the oh man. And it just becomes this like explosion of flavor. You're so used to that bitterness and suddenly it's taken away, but you can still taste it. You taste it as a part of this whole, of this like sort of, chord, if you will. Harmony of tastes and textures. But kind of like in jazz, you don't always want to resolve to the one. I like that bitter, earthy, greeny taste. So this is cool, but I think we can do cooler next time. Stay tuned, we're gonna keep playing with this concept.